Okay, hopefully you can hear me over the sound of my washing machine. I'm gonna try to do a better job with this round of videos of not covering the little like microphone on my phone. There were definitely some of those previous videos that were super muffled and super hard to hear. Um, so I'm about to start the Hunger Games. Um, I'm excited to go back through it. I have seen the movies and I have read all the books before, but I got the audiobook. So I'm gonna listen to it this go round. It's been several years since I've read the books. I recently rewatched the movies, which is why I got on this like Hunger Games kick. Um, so I'm excited to see. I know I've forgotten a lot, and that was very evident when they were like referencing things in Sunrise on the Reaping, and I was just like, I don't remember that. Um, so I'm really excited to jump into it. But like with Sunrise on the Reaping, this is a like reactions video, or just like commentary, my thoughts on the books. So I can't really do that without spoilers. So if you haven't at least watched the movies, if not, I mean, you should read the books because the books are always better. Um, but if you don't know what happens in the Hunger Games, you should probably read it or watch the movie first before listening to these videos. Um, yeah, so there's your probably one and only spoiler warning. Also, just be mindful, these books have a lot of violence and like graphic nature. I try to avoid go into specifics on what happens in the games that like ends people's lives, but just be mindful that is a trigger warning for you know assault, death, those kinds of things. Just be mindful of that if you're consuming this content or the original books or movies. But yeah, happy and excited to get into it. Okay, we are going to cover chapter 1 and 2 of The Hunger Games, the first book in the original trilogy. Um, yeah, so I have read these before and I've seen the movies, so there shouldn't be anything like shocking. But it's been a little while, especially since I've read them. I recently watched the movies again, but it has been a while since I've read them. So nothing that should be shocking, but things that I'm sure I've forgotten, that I kind of want to like remind myself, especially after going through Sunrise on the Reaping. There will be references to Sunrise on the Reaping and Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and the rest of the books in the series. So if you have not finished all of the books, maybe wait on watching any of my videos. The first chapter is mostly just giving the breakdown, Katniss and Gale's relationship. I'm gonna be real with you. I've always been Team PETA, the whole Gale thing. I get that they were hunting buddies, they're basically best friends. I don't really see the chemistry there, personally. And I just love PETA, and I think he cares for Katniss really well. So, definitely Team PETA. So I'm really biased when I talk about Gale. Again, I didn't have a ton of thoughts on chapter 1, so I didn't make a specific video for that. But for chapter 2, man, Katniss volunteering for her sister always hits hard. And then I recently watched a creator commenting. Maybe I'll see if I can figure out how to tag her in it, because I love watching her videos. But she was talking about how Katniss clearly had a crush on PETA the whole, like, for a long time, probably since he gave her the bread. And now I don't know if I'm just like biased now because I've heard that commentary. I definitely don't remember thinking that. I think she just felt like she owed him when I went through it the first time. But I'm almost like seeing it from that lens now, um, since I've been kind of like influenced in that way. Um, but I thought it was just, I can see where she gets that. Like, Katniss sounds almost like gutted when Peeta's name is called. She was like, why is it him? And she's like, the odds have not been like in my favor of late or something like that. Like, she is actually really upset that it's Peeta. Um, and again, I think she's resigned to like, I'm still gonna fight for my own life, but she is pretty disappointed. Um, and I think that is a good indication of like maybe she does have a crush on Peeta at the start. Um, and again, just really touching how she is kind of describing their interactions after he gives her the bread. How, you know, his cheek was swollen the next day at school, and then she kind of caught him staring at her the day after, but they didn't speak, and then she caught him staring at her, uh, you know, basically for years. I think she's 16 at the time of the reaping. And she said all this was the bread thing happened when she was almost 12, because she was trying to hold out for when she could register for the Tesseract. I want to say Tesseract, but this is not the Avengers. Um, so it's been like 4 years, and she's just like seeing him stare at her periodically, and she thinks it's kind of weird, but it's like, I don't know, maybe he like pities me or whatever. But yeah, it's like she continues to notice him too, and I just, man, it, and that him, she, like, they lock eyes the day after he gives her the bread, and then she sees a dandelion, and it like gives her hope that like she can provide for her family, and I guess it like prompts her like, I know the woods, I can hunt and do all this. And man, that is just so touching. That it's all of her like hope is tied up in Peeta, and then there's this like clandestine moment of her and Peeta going to the games together, and her, I don't know, it's almost like he is like a source of hope for her. Um, I'm glad I know what happens, but yeah, it's like what I wouldn't give to like not know the story again, not know that they'll both survive the Hunger Games. But yeah, I feel like this would be an even more emotional pull. Again, I don't remember my original reaction. I watched the movies first, actually, and then my husband was like, you gotta read the books, they're way better. I mean, of course. But yeah, I'm sure if I wish I had read the books first. I'm sure this would be like such a gut wrenching, like emotional pull of like, oh man, like what are the odds? I mean, it's a fictional book, but yeah. Anyway, so we're at the beginning, ready to get into it. Love these books. Okay, here I am after chapters 3 and 4 of The Hunger Games. Yeah, so chapter 3 picks up on them having the families doing and loved ones doing their visit to the tributes. And so Katniss's mom and sister are there. Katniss is super harsh with her mom, like, you cannot check out again, and y'all have to do this and you have to do that, which I get. I think it's kind of sad that what could be her last moment with her mom is one that's so like harsh and heated. But I do get it. Like, she does not trust her mom at all, for good reason. After her checking out like mentally after her dad passed. And, you know, she's worried, especially about Prim, that Prim won't be able to, you know, stay fed. So completely get it. I just think one of the many tragedies of this book is Katniss's strained relationship with her mother, and it is real life. You know, I'm not hating on Katniss for, you know, being skeptical of her mom's ability to provide, because her mom has shown that she's not super capable of doing that. Like, even once she kind of clocked back into their reality. Like Katniss is still kind of the primary provider, you know? So I can definitely see why she's concerned and why she's being kind of harsh with her mom. It's just kind of sad. I mean, it's never gives you the warm fuzzies to see people strained relationships with their parents. What else? And then Peeta's dad comes in to see Katniss. I watched another creator commenting on the Hunger Games. I referenced her in the last snippet too. I like her stuff a lot. She does more analysis, not reactions. But she said that her head canon or something to that effect was that Peeta's dad brings cookies for the tributes every year. And because, like, would he really have time to go back to his bakery and then bring it, bake cookies or get any cookies they had in stock and then, bring them back. So, especially when he had his own son to go see. So, I like that headcanon. I think it's really precious. And again, I talked about this in my Sunrise on the Reaping reactions too. Of like, I have this mental image of his dad just being this gentle giant, this big teddy bear that has a really big heart. And I think that's just one of the reasons why, taking the time to go see Katniss when, I mean, we find out later that he used to have a thing for Katniss's mom, but I mean, that could also translate to being almost resentful of Katniss because that was her mom's kid with another man, that she chose over him or whatever. So I think there's a lot of potential for there to be bitterness there in that relationship, but he's not. He really seems to have a soft spot for their family. And again, I think everyone in the district just feels very endearing towards Katniss because of what she did in volunteering for her sister. It's like they can tell how much, I mean, it sounds like District 12 isn't huge. Like, people generally know Katniss, especially because she goes around and sells stuff that she finds or, catches in the woods. So people are familiar with her and they kind of know the history of, her dad's passing and how she's just kind of like stepped up at a really young age, and they see her still protecting her sister by volunteering for her. So I think Katniss is kind of like the voice that rocked the nation of Panem with her volunteer for her sister, but I think it's extra meaningful for people in District 12, even outside of the scene, to see this little girl who would like maybe totter around behind her dad when he would, sell game and stuff, but then she kind of took over the mantle because she had to. And like she said, it sounds like Prim is really endearing to everyone. So, him just telling her and him knowing that that's gonna put her mind a bit more at ease to tell her that, I'll try to look out for the little girl. And like what? Just beautiful. Like, what a sweet, kind soul to, like, even if it's not true, like, even if he's not gonna do it, like, what a way to kind of put her mind at ease. I mean, I believe he would do it. But yeah, like, what a gift you could give to someone when they're likely going off to their untimely demise. To reassure them that, someone else will be looking out for her sister, the sister that she is basically giving up her own life for. Is how I'm sure people are viewing it, because again, no one believes that, anyone from District 12 can actually win, or is likely to win. So, anyway, just very endearing to Mr. Malark. And then Madge. Okay, so I talked about this with Sunrise on the Reaping. Her, the Mockingjay pin, I remembered like halfway through one of my videos on Sunrise on the Reaping that how she got that pin was different in the books than in the movie. She doesn't buy it at the Hob. She gets it from Madge. And that was Maisley's pin. And so I'm even more convinced. I don't know if it actually confirms this anywhere, but this is at least my headcanon and what I'm convinced of. That Madge is Marilee's daughter. That it's Maisley's sister's daughter, and that's how she has the pin. And um, yeah, again, this is my own headcanon. I don't think it states this anywhere, but I think, Marilee was greatly impacted by the loss of her sister's life in the 50th Hunger Games. And, I feel like she had a little spark of rebellion in her following that. And so I'm sure she, like, uh, shared that with her daughter and the significance of mockingjays, and like that's why Marilee kind of gave that to Madge. That's my theory. Because it wasn't like it was something really dear to Maisley. She didn't like the pin. It says she like threw it in the back of a drawer somewhere. So I don't think it was like like this is something that your aunt treasured, and so here you can have it now. I think it's more so like a kind of a, in this family we try to make our own posters, like Maisley and Hamish always said. Like we, Madge was wearing the pin to be her trinket that she carried into the arena if she was reaped. And, again, I think it's because her thought is to follow in her sister's footsteps of trying to, to follow in the footsteps of her aunt, of, just some quiet acts of rebellion, by like wearing a Mockingjay pin, which is a rebellious symbol. So I love the significance that Suzanne Collins added to the Mockingjay pin through Sunrise on the Reaping. And then Gale comes in, and I feel like Gale and Katniss are so similar because the way he talked to Katniss reminds me of how she talked to her mom and Prim, of very get down to business, like, look, I care about you, but this is what you need to do, like, to survive, to come back to us. And I think it's really clear that you can tell how much Gale cares for her. I suspect that he was going to say, remember that I love you, or whatever it is, when the Peacekeepers are ripping him away. And I don't even know at that moment if it would have been meant as like, I'm in love with you. It's just like, I care very deeply for you, And again, just a comfort for Katniss that he will look out for her mom and sister. Oh, I didn't say, I'm glad she told her mom and sister that she loved them. I know that was something she was kind of going back and forth on the train later, of like, do I, maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh with my mom, but at least I told her I loved her. And I do think, it's in my mind evident that she does care for her mom, and maybe that's me just projecting, because I can't imagine her not having care for her mom to some degree. But I think that is clear, and maybe it is just that I care for my mom because I know that Prim dearly loves our mom. I don't know, but I think she does care about her, and I think that's the whole reason why she's like even questioning, should I have even been that harsh, Effie's so out of touch. I said it in Sunrise on the Reaping. I love Effie's character. I think she's, of the Capitol, like, loyalists, she is the most endearing. But yeah, all of her interactions with them. She did give me like Drusilla vibes when she was talking about like how the previous two tributes were like barbaric or whatever, and turned her stomach the way they ate. And but I love Katniss just like pointedly like not using silverware after that and just eating with her fingers just out of spite. So that Haymitch, I love how Katniss, I mean, she's a hunter. She's like a predator. She is analyzing everything Pete is doing and saying. And it's so funny because through a lot of it, it's like, it couldn't just be him being nice, right? Like, it's got to be like part of his plan. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I do think Pete is very intelligent, and he was scheming, coming up with ways to like survive. But at the end of chapter 4, she was like, I'm coming to realize that he's planning, and that means he's planning to like end my life, because he's trying to win. And it's like, what we find out later is it's actually, he's like trying to figure out how to keep her alive. And it's just, it's so funny kind of knowing how things progress and then going back and listening to it, because it's like, oh, Katniss, like, she's a glass half empty kind of gal. And I get it. She's lived a really hard life. I too can tend to be a little glass half empty sometimes. But I, yeah, I think, um, she's just seeing the worst in PETA, and it's like, bro, he is doing everything. Everything he's doing is like for you. um, but anyway, um, Haymitch, they kind of wake him up and are like, hey, you need to help us. And I love that. I love that Haymitch, like, oh, I got some fighters this time. And I really do think that Haymitch is truly saddened by every District 12 tribute that he has to mentor and then that doesn't make it out of the arena. But maybe he is seeing a spark of hope, or at least, I'll try to help him as much as I can because they're fighters. And, I just really think there is more significance for him being that Katniss is Burdick's daughter, and he knows that, and Burdick was his best friend before their falling out. And, I think there's just a lot wrapped up in this for Haymitch that he's trying to, like, deal with and struggle through. But, he's going to choose to try for them, So, yeah, love these characters, love where it's going. Yeah, just love these books. I just think chapter 5 is hilarious. I was trying not to do every single chapter, but the ending specifically, like, a lot of it's just her getting ready with the stylists and everything. But then at the end, PETA says something about, like, thanks for holding on to me. I was afraid I'd fall over there. And she's like, in her mind, she's like, I'm feeling comfortable, but I have to remember he's, like, plotting to kill me. The nicer he is, the, like, more deadly he is, or something like that. And she's like, two can play at that game. And then she gives him a kiss on the cheek. And that is hilarious because if you've read the books before or seen the movies even, he has a huge crush on her. He's legitimately just like being all flirty or whatever. And she's just like that poor boy. She's giving him kisses on the cheek, and I'm sure he does not know how to take that. But yeah, I just thought that was hilarious. Man, for chapter 6, like, how eerie is that comparison to her not helping the girl who becomes an Avox to people watching the games? Like, and I mean, she has a point of, if you see injustice happening in the world and you do nothing, like, what does that say about you? And it's pretty comparable because people watching the games, it's the same thing. Like, nobody's helping in the face of, like, injustice or harm being done. I do think there's a little bit of a difference in that she's not relishing in the harm, but still. This whole plot point about the Avox girl, I didn't really, I remembered there being an Avox that she recognized, but I didn't remember that she thought they were Capital. So I think that's so interesting. And I guess is meant to be alluding to people in the Capital also fleeing and being part of the rebellion. The assumption is, I would think, is that they're fleeing to District 13. But it really makes you wonder, like, what was actually the catalyst for them to run? Like, did one of them commit a crime? Probably the boy, since he was kind of the ended. And so they're like, okay, we just gotta go, and then tried to hedge their bets and make it to District 13, where I guess the underground rebel movement has figured out they weren't actually, turned to rebel. But yeah, just I feel it feels really pointed that Katniss believes they're Capital. I don't know if it is. Again, my assumption is that it's to allude to the fact that there are people in the Capital that also don't approve of what's happening. But I don't know. If you think there's something else, like, please let me know. I would love to get other people's thoughts on that one. Then also just the idea of being on the roof. Like, I am surprised that Snow and the game makers and whatnot would actually let people go on the roof if they couldn't actually monitor what was happening. So that doesn't feel as legit, unless they're just super cocky that, like, well, who cares if we can't hear them on the roof, or like maybe they don't think they're smart enough to figure it out, they can't be heard on the roof. So that's, yeah, I don't really, that just doesn't feel as believable to me. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's something more to, like, people being monitored, and if there are intentional, like, points that you don't try to fix or don't try to shut down if you can't monitor them well there. But I mean, there's a garden and everything, so it seems like, it's almost intentional. But I don't know why they would allow that if they really couldn't be overheard. So, and also, how do, like, the rebels know the places that they can't be overheard? Or are they just kind of rolling the dice? Maybe they say something shady here and there, and places that they think they may be able to get away with it, and then see what happens. See if they get punished. I don't know. I had another thought about, I have to think. I don't remember what my other thought was about this chapter. This may have been relevant. This was, I think, in the last chapter, and I forgot about it. But Senna saying that he requested District 12. I'm curious as to why. I guess, like, maybe based on Haymitch's story, District 12 has always been a little bit more willing to be rebellious. I don't know, but, based on the future stories, we kind of know that Senna's part of the rebel movement. But I don't know why he would choose District 12, because I'm assuming they would have had to have made those choices long before the reaping, so they have time to get ready for it. So it wasn't even like, oh, Katniss inspired them. And I was also like, well, maybe it was Haymitch, because he's part of the rebels. But it made it sound like at the end of Sunrise on the reaping that he kind of, what's the word, like, renounced all of that, and wasn't actually staying connected with the rebels, because he was all like, I'm not who you need, and then he was just drinking himself into oblivion. So yeah, I don't know what the point of Senna requesting District 12 would have actually been. Again, unless it's just has been rebel activity from District 12 in the past, or if they were trying to get a foothold in District 12 with the tributes, because that's closer to 13. So I just don't, again, I get why District 12 is important after the events of the Hunger Games, because Katniss becomes this huge symbol. And I could see why Senna would want her, because of her being super inspiring with volunteering for her sister and all this stuff. But again, I imagine that decision would have had to have been made earlier than the reaping. So I don't know if there's any insight on that, or if anyone's seen Suzanne Collins talk about that in, like, interviews or something. Okay, chapter 7 and 8. So they're essentially, like, getting ready for training at the beginning of chapter 7. And I love them just, like, talking each other's, like, skills up. Both of them individually are like, yeah, I don't really have any skills. And the other one's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're really strong, or you can shoot a bow. So them kind of hyping each other up, but not really, like, seeing their worth, like, within themselves. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about, like, Katniss and Peeta's relationship throughout the series, is, like, they really, I feel like they call out the best in each other, and, like, they see the best in each other, whereas, like, maybe they don't necessarily see the best in themselves. Maybe on Katniss's part a little bit more than Peeta's. But Peeta brings up how his mom said that, their District 12 may actually have a victor for a change. And can you imagine, like, oh my gosh, that woman, his mom is just kind of terrible, because it's one thing if you don't believe that your kid has a chance of winning, or the other person going with him has a better chance. Why would you say that? Holy cow. Um, at least like try to give him some hope, you know? Like Prim, at least try to win, but no, it's just like, oh yeah, maybe the girl going with you, not you, but maybe the girl going with you could win. And I love Peeta too, telling Hamish like she has no idea the effect she has on people. It's like, bro, and Katniss thinking that it's like underhanded, and him basically saying that people were giving her handouts. It's like, I think he's probably just complimenting her. Like, he knows the effect she has on him, and he sees, like, how other people are, like, drawn to her and like her. Because he even said his dad, like, likes her and her sister, you know? But again, Katniss doesn't recognize how people feel about her. She recognizes how people feel about everyone around her, like, how she thinks everyone loves Prim and how everyone in the capital is gonna love Peeta. And it's like, well, it's like she's oblivious to the fact that people actually like and respect and care about her. Um, yeah, they are working on stuff in training. They notice that Rue is shadowing them. It's kind of like the first hint that Rue might be, you know, kind of drawn to Katniss. Um, and they, yeah, I feel like there's nothing super iconic that happens during their trainings and whatnot. I guess that thing in the movie where Katniss tells Peeta to throw something heavy because the other tributes are looking at him like a piece of meat. I guess that doesn't happen in the books. Again, sometimes it all blurs together for me. I don't remember what's book canon and what's movie canon. But Hamish did tell him to kind of stick together as part of their like plan, the route they're going with their like schemes or whatever. And I thought that was interesting that it's like Hamish kind of, well, I don't know if Hamish came up with that plan after seeing Cinna's plan to have them like hold their hands in the parade. That may have been when he kind of devised that, like, okay, it's going to be better if everyone sees them as a team. And he kind of mentioned that he liked that it's just rebellious enough. So, and especially after Sunrise on the Reaping, we know that he kind of likes at least some rebellion, even if he's kind of struggling in his current position with that, I guess. And then Katniss shooting the apple out of the pig's mouth during her like one-on-one with the game makers to get her score. Iconic. It's just so bold. And but then her freaking out about her family. And it's like, yeah, like she probably has reason to freak out. I think she was very lucky that that they saw it as like a positive. And again, I doubt that there's any conversations about it in the book, but in the movie, you see Seneca Crane and Snow talking, and Seneca being like, "Well, she earned it," and Snow being like, "She shot an arrow at Capitol people. Like, are you crazy?" So just so I like additions like that to the movie of kind of maybe some of the back and forth that you don't get from just Katniss's perspective. I feel like it adds to it of like, okay, what was the motivation for them giving her a higher score? And I guess Hamish like hypothesizes and whatnot, but the movie kind of gave us some quote unquote answers, even if it's not book canon. And then yeah, she pulls an 11, crazy score. I'm guessing that's the highest. I remember her saying that the careers were getting like 8 to 10 or something like that. So I think she may have gotten highest. I'm sure that is really painting a target on her back, which probably helps Peeta get in with the careers. Because she's like, you know, priority number one to take out. And yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think not a ton happened with chapter 9. That was more so her just like feeling the effects of, you know, her shooting at the apple. And then feeling betrayed that that Peta asked to be trained alone, which just kind of sucks. And again, I think he was doing it for her best interest and knew that she wouldn't go along with like his plan to kind of like self-sacrifice to help her win. But yeah, and I could see her feeling betrayed. It's like, oh, okay, I get an 11, and now we're just like complete enemies. Like all sense of pretense is over. But I love too when they, and this is in chapter 7 too, when they're kind of having to be cordial with each other in front of everyone, and Katniss is like, he's so much better at this than I am. He's asking questions about her story with the bear. And it's like, I think he might actually be interested. It's like, that's a pretty fascinating story if you were chased by a bear. And she's just like, yeah, he's just doing a really good job playing the game. I love how she sees everything through that lens. It's like, maybe Peta is actually interested in getting to know you as a person. Maybe Peta is actually like, kind and caring and thoughtful. So anyway, that's kind of funny. Yeah, I love all of her perceptions of Peta and his actions. And again, as someone who has read the books and seen the movie, you're like, oh, okay, he actually has a crush on her. Like, we kind of know a lot of his motivations, or can surmise a lot of those motivations, but she's just like, it's all a game. It's all part of his plan. So, God, this is funny. I love her like lack of awareness of, or her she's so pessimistic. Like, the glass is always half empty. Like, she can't see any potential good in anyone, I guess. And I get it. Like, she's lived a really hard life. That's not like a judgment. It's just kind of a funny, like, okay, some people actually like care about you, Katniss. Yeah. And I thought I had another thought about something with their preparation stuff, but I don't remember. There's like a lot that kind of little things that happen throughout these chapters, and this is already getting kind of long, so probably wasn't that important. Anyway. Okay, chapter 9. This is the last chapter for like part 1 of the book. I love the interviews. I love that they highlight Thresh a little bit. Again, it's not a ton, but the boy from District 11, how he's just like sullen and sometimes just like doesn't even answer questions. And I love that. It's like he is mad and he's just kind of like living in that anger. And not that I think it's good to just stew in anger, but also you can kind of see why he would be a little mad. So yeah, I like that a lot. I also feel like Katniss saying she would bet on him gives a little foreshadowing. Like, he's one of the last 4, I think. He ends up being one of the last 4. So kind of highlighting, giving you some insight on, like, this is somebody that Katniss is like aware of, that he could be a major threat. Kind of makes you wonder if he would have won if it wasn't for Katniss and Peta being able to team up. But I guess the Mutts do kind of end up taking him out, so that maybe that would have left Cato. I don't know. It's interesting. And then, sorry, I'm bouncing backwards a little bit because I forgot. I love this piece with the Avox girl and her and Katniss kind of having a moment, and Katniss apologizing to her and her just like wiping Katniss's tears. It's like, Katniss was in her own head feeling so much guilt and shame for not having helped her. And it's like and assuming that the girl was like rooting for her to not make it out of the games, and there's this really like sweet moment of her basically being like, no, like, you would have just ended up like me, like, almost letting her off the hook a bit, which is really sweet and really beautiful. But anyway, I just think it's a pretty precious moment. Sorry, my dryer just finished that beeping. And then let's see, Katniss, yeah, he was just so rough with her sometimes, with him basically being like, I just don't know how to spin it for you, because you're unpleasant. And then Cinna almost like nurturing her and being like, I like you, everybody likes you. And I feel like that is kind of telling for almost reiterating what PETA had said about her. Like, she doesn't realize the effect she has on people. Like, people like her. People are drawn to, like, her maybe quirkiness. You know, she's likable with a tough exterior, but people are really drawn to her tenacity, like her ability to survive. And again, she's not like that with Hamish because she's just like, I don't know, kind of gruff with Hamish. I think because they're too much alike, they're very gruff with each other. But Senna just reiterating, and again, I think that lends credence to the idea of like Katniss isn't really a reliable narrator in this when it comes to people's perceptions of her. And so we're really relying on, she doesn't really think she's very likable. She doesn't think people have her back. But then when you hear the perspectives from PETA and from Senna, it's like you start to see that, you know, maybe there's more to it than that. And I like that he just like told her to be herself. Like, at this point, she has won a lot of favor in the Capitol. She just needs to not lose it, and she would probably lose it if she tried to be anything but herself, because Katniss isn't a very good actress. And people, like they point out in Mockingjay, like people are kind of drawn to her authenticity and her vulnerability. And then, yeah, her interview seems like a solid interview, but nothing like too crazy. But really like touching when she talks about Prim and how she's like looking at Senna. I love her relationship with Senna. Although with the female voice actor trying to do like a gruff male voice for Senna on this audiobook, sometimes it comes across kind of creepy to me when he's like, twirl for me, Katniss. I'm like, okay, you sound like a older man that's being a little inappropriate. Not that he's like old, but like much older than her, you know. But again, I think it's more so the voice acting, and the fact that it's a female voice actor, but her trying to like convey Senna's like calm, cool, collected demeanor. But yeah, I love their relationship. I love that she's like, you know, maybe Senna would be a friend, at least of all the people I've met here. And that he was able to kind of anchor her during the interviews. And then PETA, yeah, he's just like the charismatic king, man. And it really makes me wonder if he wasn't prepared for that question about if there was a girl back home. I think this is just my theory. I don't think there's anything that alludes to this in the books or the movies. But even though he was kind of planning his own like route with Haymitch, I don't get the impression that he was going to openly admit that he had a crush on Katniss. I think it was more so going to just be like the likable, and I think they were more so plotting how to get him in with the careers. That, again, this is just my own theory. But then he just chose to be like honest in the moment when they asked him about like a girl back home. And I don't think they planned for that, just because how would Caesar have known to ask that question unless they like saw something in his interactions with Katniss that alluded to maybe he had some feelings for her, like with the chariot ride or whatever. But again, I don't think so, because Caesar seemed kind of caught off guard with PETA basically being like, well, it won't help because she's here with me. But yeah, I just think it was this like moment of vulnerability where PETA's like, might as well tell the world, because otherwise it's probably just going with me to my grave, and then I can maybe help Katniss out in the process and like make her look desirable. So I also love does she have a boyfriend back home? And PETA said something about not sure. It made me think about like Gale. He's probably unsure if they are just friends or if there's something more. And then him saying something about, but a lot of guys like her. I'm like, that makes me wonder, like, is that true, or was he just trying to help Katniss out there and like make her look desirable? But he said the girls talked about Gale, and like how they had crushes on him. So I'm like, I don't know, are Katniss and Gale these like standoffish folks that people just like whisper about and have crushes on, but they're just kind of oblivious to like other people and their affections. Well, maybe Gail is aware because he references something about like kissing. When you kiss someone who's like intoxicated, it doesn't count, or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe he does have girls lined up out the door that he's aware of. Maybe it is just Katniss that's oblivious. But yeah, I'm very curious if that is factual. Like there are other guys that have crushes on Katniss, or if it really is just the boy with the bread. That was something I think it was in the previous chapter when she's like, I guess I hadn't admitted to myself how much I had been keeping up with the boy with the bread. When she was talking about noticing him like wrestling and the dandelion and all this stuff. And again, I just think I watched this other commentator who does a lot of analysis of the Hunger Games here on YouTube. I like her a lot. I'll try to tag her. I don't really know how that works yet, but I'll try to reference her somehow because I like her a lot. I think you should definitely watch her videos. But she was talking about how she thinks Katniss had a crush on Peeta the whole time since the bread, and just like doesn't know how to articulate that. She's not in touch enough with her own feelings. And I do think that like her saying that about I didn't realize how much I noticed him does lend some credence to that theory of just like, you know, a lot about this boy that you never talked to, you know. But anyway, I love Katniss's inner monologue about like how she perceives Peeta and her how she's noticed him and stuff. I think it's just really sweet and a really sweet part of like what ends up being their love story, you know. But anyway,